David Spencer, former Met officer. You heard Shelley. Maybe you heard some other stuff as well from other people who have great concerns about what happened. What would you say this morning, David?
Good morning. Well, first of all, any death in these circumstances is clearly tragic, and I have no doubt that the police officers involved in this operation, this is the last way that they would have wished for this operation to have concluded. Unfortunately, the circumstances of this incident mean that it simply wasn't possible for the officers to stand back in the way that some of your...
That's just not true.
Well, it is true, I'm afraid. And the reality of the context here is that there had been a shooting the previous night, which this vehicle was linked to. A firearm had not been recovered. And you have to remember, this incident happened in a dense residential street. You know, there are houses and flats all over this place. There could have been anyone walking down the road. The idea that in this context, with the vehicle moving in the aggressive way that it was, that officers could simply stand back and leave this is, I'm afraid, just not acceptable. And we have to remember that vehicles...
This is the power of boogeymen and nightmares. Because when, as I pointed out, as Reed with Hassan's situation also was a lot more intense, a lot more scary, but at any given time, he lived to serve his sentence. Raoul Moat lived to turn around actually to live and take his own life in this situation. What we're seeing in these situations here increasingly, as your caller, Nikki, just as your caller is pointing out, the limitless imagination of scenarios turn around makes anything justifiable. Because again, it's effectively, if you can just point together a scenario backed up by the respectability and authority that being a police officer or being trusted by the state encounters upon you, you're pretty much granted a license to kill if you're not careful.
Okay. I may be right. I may be wrong. But in the Raoul Moat case, which you're mentioning a lot, Raoul Moat had killed a police officer. I cannot imagine the police officer, for whatever reason, in any way whatsoever, way, shape, or form, going easy on him. Given you know what police feel when one of their own has their life taken. But Shelley has been with us. And David, you come back. Wait a minute, everybody. Wait a minute. I need to get some other voices on with huge respect. Ray in Belfast in a second. But David, just come back on that. Then we'll go to Ray and other callers. David Spencer.
The thing is, we don't just need to rely on the potential scenarios, as important as that is, and the police officers will have been thinking about in this case. We can look at the data. So in the year to March 2024, armed officers in England and Wales were deployed on 17,589 armed operations, and they discharged their firearm on 2 occasions. That's less, or that's just about 0.01% of armed deployments in this country led to
extreme circumstances, obviously, because of the So why this occasion? Why didn't they? A lot of people are saying, coming into us, obviously it's a divisive issue, but a lot of people are saying, why didn't they shoot the tyres? Why didn't they de-escalate the situation?
I think we need to, and you've seen the body-worn video, and it's obviously been in the news over the last 12 hours since the jury verdict came back. Shooting the tyres, is simply not a realistic option. This is a highly dangerous moment. You have to remember that a car in itself, in the wrong hands and in the wrong circumstances, can be a weapon. It's only a couple of years ago that we remember PC Andrew Harper in Thames Valley Police, who was tragically killed by someone driving a vehicle. So the reality of the situation is, I'm afraid, tragic as it is, that in these very few occasions where it is necessary, police officers simply have no choice but to take this level of force. And tragic as that is the reality.
I'd like to hear Shelley's response to that, a black woman who's been stopped by the police. And also Ray in Belfast, you're coming up. Mark in Manchester, you're coming up as well. Go on, Shelley.
Yeah, I think the previous caller said about, the houses and anyone could have been walking by. All the more reason for the police not to have created that hard stop and use alternative ways of trying to apprehend this person without creating that, immense danger. They had, yes, the car was involved in something, but I think, you can say, oh, everything is really dangerous. It was really, really dangerous, and use that as a reason to take someone's life. But maybe they need to learn that these hard stops are, they create a lot of danger, and they need to do that on a residential road like that, like your previous caller was saying and trying to justify why they had to kill this man. Did they need to do that hard stop there? And it's always, yes, they hardly discharge, force, but why is it always the minority people that always, have all these outcomes?
Well, one of the key aspects of the law here, and I think it's important because that's what the jury will have been referring to and the judge will have directed them towards. So Section 76 of the Criminal Justice and Immigration Act says that there isn't an expectation to, and this is the quote, weigh to a nicety the exact measure of any necessary action. And the law recognises that in these situations, which are fraught, dangerous, very, very concerning, there'd been a shooting the previous night and the firearm hadn't been recovered. The law does say that police officers must use can use reasonable force to prevent crime, but also that the precise niceties of the situation, the law recognises that it's just not realistic to be able to do the sorts of things that some of your callers are suggesting.